Welcome to Live Into Your Best Life, a show where people learn how to go from where they are to where they'd like to be in any area of life. If you're looking for a new job, wanting to improve your relationships, or even reclaim your health, Polyskaya will share with you a simple formula that can take you on a journey to begin to live into your best life in all areas of life. Now sit back and begin your journey.
Hello, and welcome to Live Into Your Best Life. I'm Polyskaya, your show's host, and today I am with Adele Kamel Whitley. Now, she is on the other side of the world from me, and I know that you are going to love getting to know her. Let me share a little bit about Adele. So first of all, she helps people to buy themselves and stop chasing other people's dreams and start living their own. As a transformation life coach and the founder of the Buy Yourself philosophy, which we're going to dig into, I'm intrigued to learn more about that. Adele is on a mission to help individuals invest in what matters most, themselves. She works with driven individuals who feel stuck, unfulfilled, and disconnected. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a leader, or just people that are ready to change, Adele is excited and ready to work with you. She has a no-nonsense style, and she is unapologetic because she's going to hold you accountable. She'll challenge you to stop playing small, take back your power, and build a life that actually excites you. She's a Lebanese foodie with a love for good conversation and authentic connections. Adele brings her rich cultural roots into her work. She believes life is meant to be savored, whether it's through perfectly cooked meal or breakthrough moments in coaching. Her mission is to help people reconnect with their values, get clear on what they really want, and take bold action to create it. So whether it's overcoming burnout, letting go of self-doubt, breaking free of scarcity mindset, she helps her clients with their thinking and guides them towards lasting transformation. When Adele's not coaching, you'll find her traveling, speaking, writing, hunting down the best food spots because she's living what she teaches. So I'm really excited to tease apart all those different areas, Adele. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Polly. Have you ever considered speaking out books, like audiobooks? You have the perfect voice for that.
Thank you.
I was
That's fun.
totally in the story.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you. Very cool. I'm glad I have you on the show. You just started off perfectly. Thank you. You made me feel really great.
That's what I do.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Okay, so tell me and the listeners, what's this philosophy? How did you come about it? What's your journey? How did you get where you are? Like all the things. Tell us about your story.
Yes, I will. First of all, thank you. And yeah, you mentioned Buy Yourself. And Buy Yourself came from, it's literally my own story. It's my story in my life. And how many times in my life where I didn't buy myself and what it cost me. And also how it felt when I finally realized that was what I was doing or not doing. And it literally came from, I used to work with sales. So the start of Buy Yourself came from sales, but then I realized it was much bigger than that. But I realized when I was working with different sales teams that so many people was afraid they were doing all the work before, the prospecting, the conversations. But when it came to closing the deal, everyone was hesitating. And I was curious to why is that? And I realized three things, like three main reasons, which was one, they haven't bought the service or the product which they sold. Two, they haven't bought into the company. But most of all, they haven't bought into themselves. So the tagline then became, you cannot sell anything to anyone before you buy yourself. And if we then expand, that's in everything in life, isn't it? Whether you're on an interview, whether it's me sitting here talking about me, whether you're having a conversation with your kid or your spouse, you're constantly selling yourself. But the real question then becomes, who is this person you're selling? Is it you, the real you? Or is it a version of you that you've taken on from someone else? And then that's when by yourself is, have you really bought yourself? Have you really bought into the life that you're living? Is it your dreams? Is it your stories? Is it your beliefs? Is it your aspirations? Is this you? Or who are you selling out in the world? So that's the whole concept with by yourself. And of course, as I was saying, that comes from myself. I was living a life living up to everyone's expectations, mainly my parents to start with, and then social media and society and what's on paper looks good. But then I realized I was literally questioning, is this all there is to life? On paper, ticked off all the boxes and had a perfect life. But inside I was feeling empty. It was full, totally empty. And then I realized the disconnection from who I was and what I was doing was huge.
Mm. Okay, so what was huge? So part of the premise of live into your best life is really helping people get from where they are to where they want to be.
Yeah.
And so how did you discover the gap or that huge miss? How did you become aware of that?
First of all, I love the name of the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
And second of all, I don't think I became aware of how big the gap was. But what I was aware of was that there was a feeling right there that was not right. And I think that because people think, there's so many people I talk to, and I'm betting you too, which people that says, yeah, but life's good. Life's okay. It's all good. But then I don't know if you read the book, Good is the Enemy of Great, or or heard that saying, good is the enemy of great. And that was me, it was good. But there was something inside of me that was telling me, this is not all. There's something missing. And it's sad to say that, but the part that was missing was me. So I was missing in my life.
Okay. So how did you discover you were the missing piece?
Yes. So I don't believe in accidents, but I was reading a book one time, and I've had mentors since I was 21. So I've always worked with mentors. There's one thing to know something, and then there's one thing to execute. There's two different things, right? So you can read all the books in the world, you can listen to all the podcasts in the world, but if you don't do something with this information, it's just lost. But I was in Mexico, it was some years ago, and I was doing an exercise in a book I was reading. That's the funny thing. I usually don't do the exercises, especially on vacations, but this was a value exercise. And I was in a time in my life when I was like, there is something off. I don't know what this is. And by accident or not, this exercise came in this book, and I'm like, let me do this value exercise. And I hadn't been doing that for some years. But then when I had it on paper, black on white in front of me, I just realized I was totally living misaligned with my values. And what is values? That's me. I was living in a disconnection with myself, but there I had it in words, black on white. That's how I started to realize that.
Nice. Excuse me. Getting really clear on your values and looking at your life in a real way.
Yeah.
Take the blinders off and really be honest with yourself. Am I living this? Yeah. What matters most to me? Or am I saying this matters, but I'm being someone else?
Exactly. And then most of all, being aware of what matters, because I think it's 2 or 3% of American population even know their values. Yeah. And then when you know them, for most people, it's just a long list of words. They have this list of words, but then the main thing is, what does it mean? What does these values mean to me? And how does it mean to live from them? Yeah. And I just realized that I can barely living any of them. Yeah. And for people that don't know what your values are in terms of what do you mean living your values, it just means whatever is, like you said, matters most to you, whatever reflects you from the inside out is just the word that describes it. That's your value. So if you don't live from your values, that means it's a disconnection from who you are and how you're living your life.
Indeed. And I think as you were talking, what the word that was coming to my mind was you were out of congruence. You knew what you wanted, and you were living this life that was fulfilling everybody else's expectations. And then all of a sudden but this isn't fulfilling me. And I love how you took the opportunity to dig in, figure out what's misaligned here, what's out of congruence, and what do I need to do then to get into alignment. So what did you do?
So what did I do? I think most people know what they want to do. I just think most people are afraid of admitting that to themselves, depending on where on this journey you are, of course. I knew I had already been on this journey. I had actually talked myself out of this profession and this career when I was 10 years younger, due to the limiting belief of I'm too young. So I knew already. But when it was there, it was like, you can't run from it anymore, Adele. Like, here you are coaching people on how to buy themselves. And then you're not even doing that yourself. Not only was I discongruent with my life, I was also feeling like a fucking hypocrite.
Yes, yes.
And that becomes painful.
Yeah. I just said this to someone yesterday. When you learn something, you can't unlearn it. Exactly. When you see something, you can't unsee it, right? Yeah. Just like when you say something, you can't bring those words back. You can't eat your words, right? And it's there. And so what did you, and you, I don't know that you've said these exact words yet, but the critical piece then is once you identify your values, then you actually have to take action to align with your values, right?
Yeah.
And so how did you take action? What did you change?
Absolutely. And I just back to what you said, I always say, once you are aware, you can't become unaware. So it's the same thing. Yeah. So for me, I always say I've been on and off conforming or on and off buying myself. I've had my own company several times, and I've also had a corporate career several times. So at that point, I was in corporate. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with corporate. I'm just saying be true to yourself in what you're doing, right? For me, it was literally like the second I knew, I quit my job. And I wanted to say that before, because I don't want people to listen to this and go, I'm going to quit my job. That's not what this is about. Right. But I knew what I'm here to do, which is the whole buy yourself mission. But I think I had to go through all that in order to sit here with you and with my coachees and also speak on stage about this. If I hadn't gone through the journey myself, it would be pretty hard to talk about it. So now I know why all that happened. But so what I did, I quit my job and I found the gap. Now we're talking about the gap. Was there any gaps in skills, or was it a mindset gaps? I hired a coach and I went into much more life coaching, NLP, started to educate myself. So that's what I did. I figured out, where do I need support? What skills do I need? And then I took it from there. So I had a coach I was working with, and I took the skills that I was missing, I added them to my portfolio, and then you just start. Most people are afraid of that because they would go, that's not me. The identity part comes here now. And I have a firm belief, and I know this is not only my belief, but you're under no obligation to be the person you were 5 minutes ago. That's right. You can reinvent yourself today.
That's right.
So whatever you're feeling, if that means reinventing yourself, just go do it.
That's right. Yep, exactly. And it's funny that you say that, because I was sharing the story recently about when I was a kid. There was a lot of, I've lived a lot of life in a short period of time. And I couldn't wait to graduate from high school and be able to move out of that area that I grew up in. Not because it was bad, because there's a lot of really great things that happened in my childhood and a lot of really wonderful memories, but because I needed to leave that behind. While there were a lot of good things, there were also a lot of trauma, a lot of things that it was like, that is not my baggage anymore. That is not my life. And I'm no longer going to allow people to treat me that way. I was 18 years old and I moved out, and I did exactly that. I created who I want to be. Yes. And the perception I wanted people to see. And I continue to reinvent myself constantly based on where I'm going next and what I want to do next. And it's not about, this was Polly, now this is Polly, because it's the thread, but it's okay to shift and align with what's really going on in your next season or phase of your life. It's like a new chapter. Right. And when I would go home, I don't go home very often now, but back then when I would go home, people didn't even recognize me because I had transformed so much. And a lot of that happened within. But a lot of people don't realize when you change and own your power, like you talked about, and you just become authentic, you literally change in how you look, how you carry yourself, and how you're perceived. Did you find the same experience?
100%. Like you said, so the congruency of who you are, how you think, and who you believe that you are. I always say it just shines out in all areas in your life, but then also comes back in all areas of your life. So the people that you attract, the opportunities you attract, they all come aligned now. It sounds maybe fluffy for some people, but I've lived it. It sounds like you've lived it.
Yeah.
Why not try it?
That's right. But what do you have
But
to lose?
I'm impressed. 18 years old, you realize that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I actually realized it a lot sooner, but I had to wait until I graduated from high school.
Wow. Wow. Kudos.
Yeah. So it's just, and I think it was because it was an internal something inside me. And that's one of the things that I've always trusted is that inner guidance system. And also trusting how things unfold, like watching for signs, noticing different bread, sharing something on social media, and then reading how people respond. Yeah. Also gives me nuggets on, am I hitting the mark? Ooh, I struck a chord. Let's talk more about that. Those types of things, because I'm curious and I want to dig in and learn more.
I love it. Because most people just shut that down because it's not realistic, right? Because it's only feelings. I really say feelings is who you are. It's like science from inside. So I love it. I just see how many people that doesn't, I was one of those. I didn't listen to that. I knew I had it. That's why I say inside that you have that, but you just numb it in whatever ways you numb it.
And so you said you knew that. So now you do listen?
Oh, 100%. That's the only thing I do. I literally have just released a journal where I would say 25% is about how you feel and how you want to feel. Because when you act, when you start from that place, like you said, from inside, and you start creating from that place, if you already tell yourself, I want to feel like this. First of all, how do I feel? So why do I feel like this? Just look for some signs. How can we change that? But then, okay, I feel like this now, but how do I want to feel? So now we can change our state within seconds. And then go out and create from that place. So absolutely. But it's been a painful journey because I have felt so much and ignored it. And that's worse than feeling and just accepting it, as we know now as coaches.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so because a lot of people do stifle that or numb it or don't listen, right? And it's funny because when I raising children and saying if they do something they know is wrong. Yeah. And this is like one of the easiest ways to describe this, I think, is okay, when you chose to do that thing, did you know that was a wrong choice? And they'll look at and they're like, no. I'm like, okay, let's just talk about that a little bit. You're telling me no, but you hesitated, and the look on your face tells me that maybe your answer isn't matching how you're feeling. So when you had this, should I or shouldn't I, and you chose to, inside, how did you feel?
So much resistance.
Well, uncomfortable, and I knew I was going to get in trouble if it didn't work. Okay, and you chose to do it anyways. I had to see if it would work. And what made you think it would? I don't. Okay.
I love that.
And I can't tell you how many times I've had those conversations. And it's funny because the only way we can learn is going through it.
Sure.
And a lot of people look for shortcuts. And just tell me what to do. Have you ever had that?
Oh,
someone comes to yeah. And you got to go through it. It's like the butterfly, right? They're in a cocoon and they have to flap their wings to build up that stamina and the muscles in order to fly. And it's that same thing. If we don't, as coaches, help our people that we're working with learn how to dig in, they're going to be reliant on. So how do you help people with that?
With what exactly?
To build that muscle. Like, how did you help yourself build that muscle so that you can, because I can just tell you continuously look for improvements and you're constantly improving yourself. And then I'm assuming, and I shouldn't assume, I suppose, that you teach people how to do this as well. And so talk about how do you build that, help people or help yourself build that muscle?
Yes. So it's just like you say, it's a muscle. So how do you get strong in a gym? You have to train and you have to be willing to know that muscle is very weak at the moment. So
Mm.
many people, so one of the first things I ask my clients is, when was the last time you spent time with you? And then people go, what do you mean? Like, I'm with myself all the time. I'm like, no, really, like with you. No phone, no podcast, no music, no TV, no nothing. You yourself in silent room, nothing else. And I promise you, Polly, I think no one has given me an answer where they have done it.
Yeah.
Like, never.
It's
Like, okay,
uncomfortable.
yeah, first it's uncomfortable because you have to face yourself, but second, like, how do you even know yourself? How do you know who you are if you've never spent time with yourself? So how do you get to know anyone in the world? You have to spend time with them. And when you are without that person for a period of time, you don't really know them that close. And it's the same with ourselves. So I help people, I literally tell them, sit with yourself, if only for 5 minutes, and then maybe 10 minutes. And then I teach them how to journal, sometimes free writing, sometimes prompts. Now all my clients get my journal too.
Nice.
So yeah, and that's what I say, I help them reconnect with themselves. Because to your point, when they say, what shall I do? The answer is not with me. And we as coaches shall not tell anyone what to do. We're just here to draw out the answers from you. But I cannot do that before they learn how to reconnect with themselves, because otherwise the answers will be from someone else. So from what we talked about by yourself in the beginning, if the answer doesn't come from you, it will come from what Adele thinks what I think Adele wants to hear, what I think that my mom wants me to say, or what I should say according to social media. That's the place that many people would answer if we don't go back to ourselves first. So that's how we do it. And some people have a lot of resistance to that. Yeah. And they start after 1 minute to take up their phone. But it's a muscle. Like you said it perfectly. It's a muscle. We have to just do it. Well, we don't have to, but we'd want to do it.
So what are people afraid of that prevents them from doing it?
First of all, they've never done it. You know, what do you mean sit with myself like a lunatic? So it's just something they're not familiar with at all, which is so weird. But then again, of course, their own thoughts. Because now comes the thoughts. And now comes the voice that they're avoiding by spending time, by listening to everyone else, by maybe numbing with other substances. And once that voice is there, like we said in the beginning, once you hear that voice, I think they also become a bit scared, because once you start to hear it, you get intrigued, right? So you get curious most of the time, right? You're like, what is this? And then while we work together, we start putting that voice out more and more. But of course, you're afraid of change. All of you, like, that's human to be afraid of change, because who are you if you're not the person that you are right now? The person you thought you've been for your whole life, for most of people that haven't done personal development, that didn't change identity like you at 18. Who are you now? Adele's going to tell you that you might not be who you think you are. That person is even more beautiful, right?
Exactly. And I think, so part of what you brought in my mind here is we want to fit in. As humans, we're creatures of, I want to fit in, I want to feel accepted, I want to be part of something. And if people know how crazy off the charts my ways of thinking are, they're not going to like me. And if they don't like me, I'm going to be all alone. And it's just really, so instead you put on a mask.
Yes.
And it's funny because I've had people in my life who, like I had one person who said to me, a past husband, who said to me, we had so much fun when we were dating. And then when we got married, everything changed. And it was really weird to me because in my mind, just what is what you get. Yeah. I am who I am. And just because I got a piece of paper doesn't mean I'm a different person, right? And you can evolve, you can change, but you need to be authentically who you are. And so anyways, we were married. We were together for over 20 years and we were married for 17. And on this journey, how sometimes happens, we just grew apart and still care for each other. But it was interesting because after we divorced, all of a sudden I started seeing on social media, this person was going to concerts and going to ball games, doing all the things we did when we were dating. And I asked, why is it when we were married, you didn't want to do those things, but now that we're divorced, you're doing them again? And the response was, I have to be someone that someone else will be interested in because they won't like who I am really.
I get goosebumps. Really.
And I said to this person, I need to understand you're presenting, again, a version of yourself that's not real so that you can attract someone. And so really you're lying to them. And they're like, I wouldn't look at it that way, but I don't want to be alone. And I'm like, okay. And I share that story because I had empathy when a lot of people don't realize that when you show the world a different version of yourself, that's what they expect to show up. Yeah. You have to constantly be playing these characters. That's exhausting.
Can you imagine how exhausting that is? And on top of that, you're not even free to be yourself. You're not yourself. So there must be this constant resistance to the real you.
And that internal
I get tired by
chaos,
talking about it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I get tired just by talking about it, seriously.
Oh,
thank you for sharing that story though.
So how do you help people like peel back the facade and be comfortable with who they really are? Or how did you do it for yourself?
Yes. So it's not really comfortable in the beginning.
No.
So, like, really, some people sometimes because you're a coach too, when you have a coaching session, and in the middle, like I can feel some people get so pissed off at me. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I pushed it too hard. But then we have the beautiful ending when, you know, we land everything. And so it's not comfortable, but how do you do that? So it's step by step. I say first by being brutally honest of how it is. And then by listening to how people speak, you get an idea about how the world is, right? So you start to listen to their language, what they say about themselves. And most of the time, it's literally to give them permission to be themselves, right? And then go out and try it out in the world and then come back to me.
Yep.
And how did that feel now? And then once you start doing that, it's like addictive because, go figure, it's you. So it's like being this unapologetically yourself. And I see this a lot with men too. Some people think there's only women that have this people pleasing, but men, oh my God, they're like, the release in their body when they just can go out and don't have to be the tough man in front of the boys. Yeah, so it's literally conversations where you listen to how they speak and you see where there's resistance, like where they're resisting themselves, where they seek for external validations, where they don't set boundaries, when they're people pleasing, when there's everything from the external world. But of course, it's just a reflection of how you're feeling inside. So how can we now, like you said, be congruent in who we are, how we show up, and not only look for everything we want out there, but realizing that we have to give everything to ourselves. That's right. Coming from that place is such a beautiful place.
That's right.
Yeah, it's mostly the conversations and listening to how people speak about themselves. What about you? I'm guessing you have some good tips here too.
No, it's really, helping people see what they can't.
Yeah.
Because so many people say this, I can't tell you how many times, even just this week, I've heard, oh, you just make it seem so simple and you just know exactly what I need to do. You ask the questions, I'm like, oh, there it is. And I remind people that what we live is ours. We're so close to it, we can't see it. It's like that forest, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? But as an outsider who's not emotionally connected, it's easier to see things. And I will ask questions to help people reflect, introspect, dig deeper. And sometimes my questions it's like, oh, I need to ask this question. I know that this is going to help them. And right out of the gate, they're like, yeah, no. But there's a resistance there.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go there. And I have to be okay with where they're at and let their journey unfold like a flower blooming, right? Just the petals opening. And you can't, again, that's another creature in nature that you can't force. You've just got to allow the flower to open on its own. And I learned this when I was first coaching. I wanted people to get there. And I would ask questions, which then ultimately became leading.
Yes.
And as a coach, when you tell people or lead them, all of a sudden it's you. It's not them. It's coming from you now instead of them. And that piece right there was so important for me to learn and for me to get clear on, because it's got to be their journey. And when you hold the space and when you, as a coach, allow people to open up, it becomes less painful. So I think that's what we do, is we hold the space so that they can build those muscles. We're like a trainer. We're just a trainer of the internal stuff instead of the muscles. We're the emotions and the thoughts and all the other mindset stuff.
Yeah, and that's heavy and spot on to what you said. Like, if the second it comes from a place of ego, where we want to be right in our assumption or where they're going, that's when it comes from a disservice. So you're fully right. And I had a client that I've been now with for 6 months or something. And just last week we had this huge insight. And I have had a hinge for myself, but I never said that. And he's like, why didn't you tell me this before? I'm like, you weren't ready, and I'm not the one to tell you.
That's right.
But he was so relieved. But I told him, we had to do everything we've done before this in order for you to even be willing to go so deep. So building the trust in yourself, knowing that you will be okay, starting to validate yourself, all that must come before you are willing to face everything. Maybe, I don't know, everyone's different, but yeah. So I love what you just said. That's so spot on. And sometimes as coach, you just want to get them resolved. And the question is it because of you want to get them resolved or you?
Right. Exactly. And one of the things that I've learned is the people who work with me, who come to me, usually are bringing something. There's a bit of a mirror experience there, and they're bringing something that I get to learn about myself too. Yes. So I think that's really fun. When you were talking about the person 6 months and they weren't quite ready, an image came into my mind. This is going to sound really weird, but I think because you're a foodie and you like to cook so the image that came into my mind was, you wouldn't make a cake, put it in the cake pan ready to bake, and then frost it before you bake it.
Exactly.
And that was a stupid analogy, but
I love it.
Frost cake batter.
You'll destroy it. Yeah.
So
you'll ruin the whole process. Spot on.
So things happen in an order of progression to create the best outcome. Yeah. And when it's just like making pasta or gravy or any dish, right? Yeah. It's just, and real world is so many analogies for us to look at as we unfold and bloom.
So true. I have a story from just some days ago. I was at my sister's, just to connect back to the real world, and kids. Oh my God, we can learn so much from kids.
Yes.
So my sister's daughter was walking around. She's 2 in May, and she was having this towel on her head. And her mom was like, oh my God, she bumped her head last time and she still had a bruise on her nose.
Oh,
and she never learned. And I remember I was sitting there thinking to myself and just giggling. I'm like, I hope she never learns. Because yes, this will hurt and everything, but I see it so many times how we hold back because of past failures or past experiences. We now stop whatever, we don't let ourselves move forward because we remember what happened last time we did that, which will hold us back. So I was like, oh my God, we can learn so much from kids. They don't. She still had the bruise on her nose, and still she was walking around with the towel on her head with the risk of hurting herself again. But who cares?
Yep, because she's having fun and she's learning. So just think about it. She's learning what it's like, in essence, for a blind person, because then their other senses enhance.
Yeah, it's in the present moment. She's not living from past failures or experiences.
That's right. Oh, that's very cool.
Oh yeah, when I sat there, I'm like, I can't say that out loud because her mom would kill me right now. But I wish she never learns.
That's right.
I think, we should just unlearn so many stuff.
Indeed. I think also, so you mentioned that you're trained in NLP, and I am too. And one of the things that we talk about is, and this I can't even tell you, like, when I work with corporate teams, I will talk to them, I'll see patterns, and I'll ask someone, when in your childhood did you learn that?
Yes.
Because usually our beliefs, our thoughts, our ideas, the way we do things, we've learned from someone else. And so when we entered the world, and we were, a few minutes ago when we were talking about listening to your inner voice, I wanted to bring this up, but now I guess it's enhanced. That when we're born, we're blank canvases, right? And we are sponges. We take everything in. We have no filters, so we don't know. So we literally become a product of all the people, places, things that are in our lives. And so if you're struggling as an adult, it's really helpful to reflect back on some of those things from your childhood to figure out who said that, who did that, where did I learn this from? Because the way we are is learned and is modeled. And that inner voice, when you're listening to your inner guidance system, your spirit talking to you, it's going to be in a positive, it's going to be in a way that will guide you forward.
Yeah.
If you start hearing voices that tell you self-deprecating messages, or the monkey brain of you can't do that, what makes you think blah blah blah, right? That's someone else. And just like you said a few minutes ago, who taught you that? Who said that? Where does this come from? Because it comes from someplace.
Yeah.
And in that moment, it might have made sense. Take the towel off or you're going to hit the wall, right?
Yeah.
It might make sense in that moment.
You were pretty protected, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Now, fast forward, I don't want to put a helmet on my head because, right? And there's ways, though, that we translate what our experience was as a child. And when we look back at it, it's wow. Last week I had a client where they were like, I know exactly where this came from. Wow. Yeah. All these years I've had this idea because of that one thing. Yes. And it turned out that it wasn't, as you look at it, that little person was doing the best they could in the moment. And we carry it around. And like you said, it's because our body, our brain, our consciousness is there to protect us. And so when we're little, if there's something that might create fear or pain, or we might get hurt, then we're going to create a mechanism that triggers that safety. And now we have to figure out, is that safety really keeping us safe? Or is that safety holding us back and keeping us stuck?
Exactly. Yeah. And then I'm a huge fan of inner child work, like we're talking about. I'm not too much of a fan of staying too much in the past, but I always go there because, like you said, I think it's not impossible, but hard to maybe let go if you don't really know how it started.
That's right.
Because, like you said, many people go, oh my God, that's why I don't want to speak up in public. Because at some time in their lives, someone told them they're too loud, or you need to stay quiet. Otherwise, mom and dad will be mad, and we play small just to keep the peace at home. Yeah. But imagine what that does to an adult that wants to become a leader, that doesn't even dare to speak up in front of their team, because at some point they were taught that if you do that, you will not be liked. Someone will yell back at you, or someone will be mad at you, and you're a bad person, or you're too much. Imagine how much that damages. But once that clicks, oh, it's just that little child that's screaming. I always say that person that acts from that place, it's almost like that child is sitting in your lap and just running the show.
That's right.
Once they know that, and then I say, so in the absence of that, what becomes available? In the absence of that fear, of that, or that belief, or that story, what becomes available to you? Mm-hmm. And that's when you see just like a total different energy in their face, like everything. Yeah. Okay, so now let's go to that place. And then we start. So we want to create from that place, right? So we want to know what happened. We want to know that's not right now. That's what happened, and it's not true. So we have the work with, is it true? And then we create from a place of more freedom, a place of expansion, not contraction and fear, more of abundance and possibility and expansion. And whoa, and all we do is having a conversation.
That's right.
They're still sitting in the same chair. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened. So we're not actioning our way out of anything. We're just thinking and changing perspectives. And that's what is so magical with our work.
Well, and perspective is like perspective and perceptions create realities.
Yeah.
And if the reality you're in isn't the reality you'd like, what needs to change? And if nothing changes, nothing's going to change.
And then that's why, like, if you listen to the language, I always say, as we speak, we create.
Yes.
Now,
indeed.
all of a sudden, we're going to think about what we say.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Okay, so it's one thing, though, to help people get to that point of, okay, when I was 5, this thing happened. And now that I'm 50, I'm realizing it's held me back all these years. Okay, now I have that awareness. Now I know that's not true. Now I've got 45 years of unfolding, right? And it's really important to let go of the what ifs. If I'd let go of this 20 years ago, imagine, right? Because we are where we are when we're supposed to be there. It's
Yes.
whatever we were ready for, right? It's like you can't fast forward your way from Minneapolis to San Diego or Minneapolis to England without going on a journey. We don't have teleporting capabilities yet. And it's the same with our lives. And if you take a wrong turn or if you have a detour, that's the journey you were supposed to go on to get where you're at. Now that you have that awareness, how do you help people let go of those anchors from the past so that they can take action to move into the future?
I think you mentioned it with between the lines, but you cannot change what happened, right? So what happened?
Mm-hmm.
But we can change the way we view what happened. So our relation to what happened, or the meaning we gave to what happened. Mm-hmm. So if you remember in the beginning, I said, I was conforming on and off, and I was spying myself on and off. And today I realized that all that had to happen in order for me to sit here and do the work I'm doing today. But along the line, many times I regretted all of my choices because I didn't know better. Everything was in my head. Mm-hmm. So sitting here today, saying it differently, that all of my choices was exactly what had to happen for me to sit here, did that mean that what happened changed? No. The only thing that changed was the way I viewed what happened and what it means to me today. So that's how we do. We have to let go of that harsh, judgmental part of us that's looking at it and saying that was not how it was supposed to happen. So come from compassion and learnings, and how can we integrate that today? The second thing is that because we lived in that story and the belief for so long, and you know this too, we've been looking for evidence, right? So it's becoming like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. Now we want to create new evidences that this is not true. And the more we do that, the more I think we can also accept what has happened and change the relation to that too. So that's the 2 ways I see in going about it.
You will see what you're looking for.
Always.
And so when you start to look for why is that no longer true? Yeah. And what is showing me that I'm on the right track for this next step? Mm-hmm. And it takes practice because we are so used to doing things a certain way. And when you take each day, each moment as a segment of time and give yourself grace, I fell into my old ways again. Okay. Now that you've noticed, now you have awareness. Yeah. Now move on. Right?
Yeah. And you said we fall into doing the same things. And I also think we fall into thinking the old ways too.
That's right.
Which is why I think journaling is so good.
Yeah.
Because then that's where you talk to yourself, and sometimes you say, put intentions for the day. Like you said, what you create or what you put intention on will happen. Yeah. That's what I think is so important, to first decide how you want to feel, what's the intention, what you're going to go out and create, instead of just letting that happen. So instead of being more reactive to the world.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. If someone works with you, what would the experience be like? What can they expect?
Working with me, I always say it's a special experience and I'm not because I'm special, I am, all of us are, but I don't have a cookie cutting program. Is that how you say it in English?
Cookie cutter program.
For me, sometimes people are like, but you have a 12-week program, or how does that work? No, because I believe every individual is different and everyone is different. So of course we have our knowledge, we have our experience, we have our toolbox, we know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But for every person that comes into my world and my coaching, they can expect that I'm meeting them where they are at. They can expect that I will also call them out on their own bullshit. Like you said in the beginning, I don't I don't do this soft, fluffy coaching. That's my personality. Some people doesn't resonate with that. Some people do. And I also look at the feedback I get. That's what most people appreciate. That's no bullshit approach. But you'll expect a transformation. Of course, you'll expect to meet you. Mm-hmm. And once you do that, also be held by me, because sometimes that is a bit uncomfortable. Sometimes people don't know themselves, but it's beautiful. And then you can expect to create a future from that place instead of a future from, I don't know what place we picked up on along the way. But so it's a fun journey. I get warm just by talking about it, because I get so excited for everyone that comes into coaching, because they don't know what they don't know. But I've seen it so many times. And some people say, oh my God, what's happened in these months? I wish everyone can experience this. I wish everyone can experience how it is to choose a job based on who you are and not be who you should be in a job.
Right. Yes.
Right? Because that's how most people choose a job. And then they mold themselves, and they never really think that you can say no to 5 offers just because that didn't fit you, because of the scarcity of how am I going to get my money if I say no to this job. If you act from alignment, you'll get another job which will fit better.
That's right.
And just have faith in what's going to come for you, and what's for you is going to come if you act from that place.
Yeah. Exactly. I love that. Okay, so if you were to go back in time and have a conversation with the younger version of yourself, what advice would you give her?
You will never, ever be able to please everyone, because that's what I try to do. And you will never be able to make everyone happy. So make yourself happy.
That's right. I love that. That's fantastic. How do people find you?
Sorry, I was curious what you would say to yourself.
Oh gosh, similar. So I just be yourself, because you're amazing.
Yeah. And that's enough, right?
That's right. That's enough.
Yeah. I love that too.
So how do people get a hold of you?
So I'm mostly I'm on LinkedIn every day. That's my main channel. You can write me there, DM me. I read everything. I am also sharing with you an assessment for by yourself. And I think there we'll also find a link to, if they want to book an appointment with me. Otherwise, Adele Kamel Whitley, my whole name.com. You'll find all my contacts there too. And I'm so happy to hear from you. So please reach out if there's anything in this conversation that resonates.
Nice. Awesome. And all of the contact information will be in the show notes. So everybody will be able to check you out, learn more, connect with you. And yes, definitely. I downloaded the assessment yesterday, and you look at things, you're like, wow. And even though I'm a coach, it was really cool to see other angles and taking a peek. This is cool. So thank you for offering that to people. I appreciate it.
Of course, like you said, even me, when I go through those questions, there are always areas where you can not because it's like a 1 to 5. There's always areas where you can improve, right? And we will never arrive. But looking at it and going through the assessment from time to time just reminds you of, where am I not being honest or true to myself?
Indeed. Very cool. Adele, thank you so much for joining and having this conversation today. It's been wonderful. And I love getting to know you more, and I look forward to talking soon.
Same, Polly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, listeners, if you've enjoyed yourself, please follow, share, because I know there's lots of nuggets. You might want to actually re-listen, because there were so many nuggets along the way of what you can do in the moment to start transforming your life and going from where you are to where you want to be. And just give us a 5-star rating and drop a note in the comments to let me know, let Adele know. What do you think? What else would you like to hear from? Because coaches collaborate. We learn from each other as well. And not everybody's a fit for everybody. And so it's really nice for us to be able to share and to work with multiple people. So very cool. All right. And you know the drill, everyone. I want you to continue to live each day and enjoy the journey as you live into your best life. Take care, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Polyskaya, your show host for Live Into Your Best Life. Check out the show notes and visit her at polyskaya.com to learn more and continue your journey. Until next week, enjoy the adventure.